everyone, welcome to Amrita by the Book. My name is Amrita and this is my booktube, where today I'll be doing the Winter Essentials tag, and I was tagged to do this by Lady Jane Books, who is a delightful human with a taste for the truly unsavory, my favorite combination. If you don't know her channel as yet, I'll link her video down below and you should definitely check out her channel. Anyway, as you can see, where I live, we don't have winter, we just have varying degrees of hot and hotter, and I am currently melting. But this is a fun tag and I did want to do it, so let's get started. Question 1, Crackling Fire. Who is your favorite cold character warmed up towards the end? There can only be one, and that's Justin Alastair, Duke of Avon, from These Old Shades by Georgette Heyer. I don't often recommend this book to Heyer newbies because it's a very particular flavor, and I've come to realize that Georgian romances aren't as popular as Regency romances for some reason. But I really like it and I wish there were more. But Justin Alastair is a complete cold fish. He is implicated in the suicide of young men who lost their fortunes to him. He is so sinister that people call him Satanus, and he is feared and hated on both sides of the channel. And then he meets Leonie and life just changes forever, and it is one of my favorites. It is the favorite of pretty much every Heyer reader that I know. I don't know anyone who loves Heyer and thinks like These Old Shades sucks. Even though, when you break things down, you're like, well, he's a man in his 40s and Leonie is really in her teens, that's kind of sick. But you don't really care because Heyer does such a good job of selling it. And this is one of my examples for a writer being able to sell literally anything to her reading public as long as she can write well. Question 2, Snowflakes. What is a book that was full of unique characters? This has to be any book written by Terry Pratchett. I think I was in my early teens when I first read a Pratchett novel, and I just begun to read fantasy when I was about 11, and then a few years later I read one of my first Pratchett novels, and I remember being so puzzled because I couldn't understand, everybody was there, there were wizards and witches and ogres and giants, and none of them were behaving the way that they were supposed to, and it was so funny and it was so dry and it was so unique. Yeah. If you've never read a Pratchett novel, I have a video up somewhere in my playlist. I think it's in my Reading in Quarantine series, where I have a sort of primer and I explain why he's so beloved and so lovely. And also it's through him that I met Rosie, whom I love. So, he's always brought good things to my life. Number 3, Gingerbread Family. Which fictional family would you want to be a part of? Okay, this was unexpectedly hard. I realized that all the books that I read are about incredibly dysfunctional families, or families at war, or else families that are doing terrible things together or against each other. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a part of any of these families. I guess I don't want to be a part of a fictional family. And then I remembered Anne of Green Gables, the most wholesome of Canadian families. And yeah, I'd love to be a part of Anne and Gilbert Blythe's family. They seem like good parents, very old school parents, but they'd be kind and loving and supportive. And adopt me, Anne. I love you. Number 4, Blizzard. What is a book that had you confused the whole time? Okay, this is weird, but my choice for this is Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Maybe I was just having an off semester when I read it in college, or maybe I just wasn't into it, but I still can't understand the whole point of it. And I don't remember the plot details exactly, but I remember going through the tales one by one and being like, but I don't get it. What am I supposed to think? Am I supposed to think? Because it was clearly something that was designed to provoke some sort of reaction for me, but I couldn't figure out what that reaction was supposed to be. And it didn't seem like the kind of book that was open to your reactions, you know. It seemed like the kind of book that wanted a certain reaction, that there would be a right reaction and a wrong reaction, and I didn't know what the right reaction was. And I think I kind of bullshitted my way through that book, maintained my grades or whatever, but it's still somewhere in the back of my head. Like, I think I should probably go back to it at some point. Like, if somebody is doing some sort of classics readathon or something at some point, then maybe I'll pick it up and try and make sense of it. I even followed that account on Twitter, but they just talk about current events now, but in like medieval English. So what's the point? If anyone out there is a big Chaucer fan, let me know what I should be reading. Like, how can I become a better Chaucer reader? Because I think I would be open to that. Number 5, gift giving. What is the last book that was gifted to you? One of my friends got me Bombay Hustle by Debashree Mukherjee, I think is her name, and this is a academic book, but it is a series of essays about the Bombay film industry, or the Mumbai film industry, and labor, and that is something that falls within my interests, and is sort of related to the work that I was doing for my master's as well, and it is of interest to me. So yeah, I haven't finished reading it. I think I've read like one chapter in it and I am into it, but it is dense. So if you're interested in cinema and labor and history, then I would really recommend it. It is super expensive though, so maybe order it from the library. Number 6, Snowball. What's the biggest book you have ever read? Okay, I did my research on this very topic, I think for another tag, I can't remember which one, but I think the winner was A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, which is a book that works for pretty much everyone, Indian or otherwise. If you haven't read it, then you should try it. Number 7, Wrapping Paper. What is your most beat up book? Okay, I was going to go get it, but I think it's in the back of one of my shelves and I'm too lazy to get it out because then I'll have to put it back and I just don't have the energy. But this is a romance novel by Judith McNaught that I lent to my friend Sangeeta, and if you're watching, Sangs, what the hell? I think it's been like 25 years and I'm still shocked at what you did to it. It literally looks like she chewed on it for like, I don't know, a year. I know she doesn't have a dog, so it wasn't the dog. I think it was just her. I mean, you talk about like creased covers, like this one, it was like she used it for target practice. Like, I literally don't know what she was doing with it. I'm shocked it didn't like crumple into a ball by the time she was done with it. But then she gave it back to me too. Like, why didn't she just keep it? Like, I remember like getting it back from her like a year after I'd lent it to her, and then I just got it and I'm just like staring at it because you should see the way that I keep my books. My books are pristine. The only books that I have in my bookshelves that are actually falling apart are the ones that I inherited, because they're just, I have some books in here that are like, belong to my grandfather and they're more than 100 years old. So obviously they have like wear and tear. And they're aged, they're brittle, like things like that. But the binding is falling apart, but it's nothing that I have done to them. I am very careful of my books, except for the one that I gave to Sangeeta. And Sangeeta, that's why I've never, ever lent you another book, in case you were wondering. I love you, but you are a monster. Number 8, Christmas Lights. What is a book you own that has many colors on the cover? Okay, this is kind of sad, but the book that I chose for this prompt is Funky Bollywood by Todd Statman. Todd was a friend. He was one of the kindest, most generous, most curious men that I have ever had the privilege to know. Todd was rather well known in film circles. Like, he lived in San Francisco and he was very much part of the indie scene. And he wrote these books that are just gorgeous about different worlds, film cultures, And he ran this blog that was hilarious, and it is so curious because he'd watch everything from like Hong Kong movies to Turkish movies to Indian movies, and he had a special love for B movies. And there are things that he would say that I still remember after all these years, and they still crack me up, like his descriptions of things, and not in like a mean, snarky way either. Like he truly loved cinema. And he got ill a few years back, but he beat it back and he was fine. And then last year he caught COVID and he passed away in December. And it was rough because he was so beloved in the community, you know, like I don't think I've ever seen him be belittling or nasty to anybody. He was just a good guy. And I'll always remember, you know, like he came on this podcast that my friend Beth and I did back in the day, like way back in the day before podcasts were even a thing. And it was called Masala Zindabad, and we used to discuss movies, like Indian movies that were made in the 70s and sometimes the 80s. And he came on and did this episode with us, and we talked about animals, which were like animals who are pals. And it was just about all these movies in various Indian languages where the hero or the heroine would have a animal sidekick, and they would be like super helpful and help them, you know, do things. It could be a falcon, it could be a dog, a horse. One of my favorite movies had this whole thing about the hero's mother was a dolphin. Like it makes total sense. And the dolphin would send like creatures of the sea to help him out at like really intense moments in his life. And it was awesome. And he was like one of the few people who really understood what that was like and what it was like to love those things. And you know, like his passing was like, it's hard for a lot of people, but I'm going to link down to his blog down below, and maybe you can check out some of his work because he's delightful. And if you can get one of his books, you should get those too, because he's a great writer and he explains his love for things like few people ever can. Number 9, Ice Skating. What is a book that had a plot that was all over the place? This is unexpectedly hard. I feel like I know tons of books where like this happens and then that happens and you're like, why is that happening? Maybe that series by Amanda Boucher, which is this fantasy romance, and I panned it here on my channel. And I know a lot of people like it, but I honestly don't understand why any of it happened, or why it was even a 3-part series. Like it should have been just one book, and honestly it should have been like a novella, but for some reason it was a trilogy, and then it had like a whole bunch of things that happened that had no rhyme or reason to it. And if you're interested, I'll link to my critical review of that series. Number 10, Christmas Tree. Who is your favorite character of all time? Yes, you can only choose one. No contest, it has to be Edmond Dantes. If you haven't read The Count of Monte Cristo, then you really should, because it is the one classic that I will recommend to anybody at any age. It is delightful. It has all the plot, and all the plot makes all the sense, and it has drama and revenge, and it has, you know, beautiful people doing terrible things, and it's so immersive. Like you really feel like you are there. It is a feat of writing and of world building, and I enjoy it so much. And Edmond Dantes, like I was in love with him. I still am to some extent, I think. And I am so sad that there aren't any like amazingly good adaptations of that book. Like I don't get it. I've seen a few and they've all been like, it's almost as if the movies are defeated by all the plot that they have to cover, which makes me think that maybe we should do a mini series, and I would watch the hell out of that. I can't believe there are like 10 adaptations of every middling British author, and then there aren't even like, you know, one decent series of The Count of Monte Cristo. The game is rigged. Number 11, The Star. What's a book you look forward to reading each year? If you've been here before, you know the answer to this. It's hair. I read hair every single year and I am so happy by my decisions. She's funny, she uplifts my mood, and I will read like different books every year. It all depends on my mood, which one that I want to read. So I think right now I just went through Pharaoh's Daughter because my friend Becca was talking about it. So I was like, ooh, I want to read that again. And so I did, and it was delightful. Snowball fight, tag 5 people. This is my favorite part where I get to mention people that I really enjoy, and I will start with Isabel, who is delightful and is currently doing like a Valentine's themed series of videos on her channel, so you should check that out. I'm gonna tag Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and she is delightful. I'm gonna tag new friend Jimmy, who says very smart things that I have wondered about for a very long time. I'm tagging Renee at the Librarian of Alexandria because it's been a while since I tagged her and I miss her. And lastly, I tag Nikki, whom I love, and again, I haven't tagged in a while, and I miss you, Nikki. Do this tag. So that was my Winter Essentials tag. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button. And if you like the tag and I didn't tag you and you would like to do it, please do. It's entirely my bad. I would love to see what you come up with. Let me know so that I can come and check out your answers. Until next time, happy reading. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.